Hello, everybody. Welcome to the presentation on foreign shareholder investment risk assessment. My name is David James. I'm the Chief Legal and Risk Officer for BlueRock Fund Solutions, which is the #1 financial services company in the world. If you hadn't heard, you can see our new logo that was just commissioned yesterday by Copilot. I'm sure you've seen it on all t-shirts and hats. Well, thank you for being board members of BlueRock. As Chief Risk Officer, I needed to present to you a business risk that has arisen, and I needed to get your input and brief you on my recommendation. So the business risk is, we have two business lines, as you know. We have BlueRock Fund Solutions and BlueRock Distributors. They are both proposing to expand their services to allow direct foreign shareholders to invest in our clients' mutual funds. And currently our AML and KYC framework, so AML stands for anti-money laundering and KYC stands for Know Your Customer framework. Both of those are built around US regulatory standards, not foreign standards. And if we allow what these business lines are asking for, it will significantly increase risk. Of course, it will potentially increase growth and market expansion opportunities. As a reminder, board members, we have these two business lines. Is the BlueRock, the transfer agent, is registered with the SEC. Both of these companies, by the way, are subsidiaries of our parent company, which is where you sit as board members. BlueRock is registered with the Securities Exchange Commission. It has 1,500 mutual fund clients. It performs transfer agency services, which include AML and KYC services, pursuant to contracts with those clients. BlueRock Fund Distributors, we're going to call that BLD or broker-dealer. They also serve as the statutory broker-dealer for that same group of mutual funds. They also perform AML and KYC. So it's the same clients, basically. Where is this demand coming from? Well, the existing client base, and also what our sales professionals are telling us is that there is significant demand developing in the marketplace. Our advisors are asking for it, and prospects are wishing that we could offer this. When I say offer this, meaning allowing our transfer agency, phone center, and contact center to process foreign shareholders. Right now, we do not. If that application came in from a shareholder in Mexico or Canada or Spain, it would be rejected because we cannot process it. Demand is growing. No one else does it. So we would have a competitive advantage if we allowed this. And of course, if we allowed it, we can earn more revenue. So that is the business case as to why our business lines are asking for this. With everything that you do in business, there's risk. So before I get into the risk discussion, I want to go through the influence diagram with you board members about how I looked at this and how I think we need to assess the pros and cons to the business, both from an economic perspective but also from a risk perspective. So to remind you how to read the influence diagram, which I'm going to show you in a second, I'll just remind you, decision nodes, things in the yellow boxes, are decisions we have to make, yes, no questions. The uncertainty factor boxes there, or circles, ovals really, they're all the same, but I've colored them from the scale of red ones are scary, things that could go wrong. Green ones are, hey, these are positive, potential positive outcomes. And blue ones are kind of unknown. These are uncertainty, things that could happen. We don't know exactly what the outcome will be, but they are results. Some sort of result will happen in that oval. And then there's deterministic nodes. These are potential results that could include revenue, risk exposure, market position impacts. We don't know exactly what they will be, but we know there will be a determined outcome of some kind. And obviously, there is some sort of value outcome that we are looking for at the end of all this. So with that in mind, let's walk through at a very high level here how we are looking at what would it do to our company if we allowed foreign shareholders. Starting on the left here, it's a yes/no question, and we're just going to assume for the sake of this, we're going to say yes. So it's going to do four things right out the gate, starting at let's start at the top left, where it says market size. If we allow foreign shareholders, will it increase the market size of the entire market? Yes. What it'll do is it will allow advisors that have not brought mutual funds to market because they could not introduce foreign shareholders into their product will potentially decide to launch mutual funds where they never had done so before, that will increase the market size. Would it improve our brand recognition? Yes, because we would be the first company in the marketplace to do this, and we would get lots of press. Those are green. Those are positive. Negative outcomes, will the regulators look at us because we're the first? Absolutely. And probably more scary is, will plaintiffs' lawyers look at us if something goes wrong? Absolutely. So we've got two positives and two negatives right out the gate if we allow this. But we have to keep going. If market size gets bigger, our market share potentially could go up. And if you look at our improved brand could influence market share, meaning our piece of that size could also grow. And then if you keep going off of that, if our market size gets bigger, it's going to influence the number of shareholders that we have as clients. And if you go down all those blue bubbles there, that will increase our operational complexity. The more shareholders we have, particularly foreign, and I'm going to get into the risks of all this stuff in a minute, it's going to make things more difficult. And if you trace back to the increased regulatory oversight, that also puts pressure on operational complexity. There's more things to comply with. The regulators are going to be inspecting us more pressure there. Go to the next blue bubble. Increased compliance complexity. Compliance department and compliance professionals have more paperwork, more procedures, more jurisdictions to comply with. Same red bubble. Increased regulatory oversight putting pressure on that. Increased litigation is putting pressure on our legal department. Same thing with the regulatory oversight. Lawyers are going to have new contracts. They're going to have to deal with demand letters from different jurisdictions, perhaps regulators from different jurisdictions. And the last blue bubble there is in our increased insurance cost. Our insurance costs absolutely will go up, and that's coming from increased litigation risk. If you look at the orange box in the middle, our number of employees will increase because of our compliance department and our legal department. We could ignore that, but the increased complexity is going to influence the number of employees that we need to service this potential increase in number of shareholders. But there's other things here going on. We have the opportunity for more revenue. So if you look at the number of shareholders, that box is going to influence what we can charge. Increased operational complexity, the blue box, second to blue box from the top, means potentially we could increase our fees because what we're doing is more complex, could command a higher fee in the market. And of course, higher fees means higher revenue. But on the other side of it, look down below there, the total costs. A lot of those blue boxes and of course number of employees, all those things are influencing our costs. So ultimately there you have to take costs versus revenue, and those are aiming into the profit. So as we're thinking through this from a revenue and economic perspective, all of those costs are going to have to be calculated. And the revenue opportunity is going to have to be calculated to see if, just forget the risk for now, whether we're happy with the profit. The ERM rating, we're going to get to that now because we have to look at the risk side of this. To do that, we're going to look at Siegel's four-step ERM model, which involves risk identification, a risk quantification, which is important for the decision making that this board is going to have to do, and of course the messaging that's going to come out of that decisioning. To do that, I used a framework of 1 to 5, the Basel method. We're going to have the business unit conduct an economic impact analysis of basically the economics. Will this thing even make money for us? Forget the risk piece. From a business perspective, does it make sense? We're also going to look at the probability assessment, and so some risk scenarios as to what is the likelihood using Monte Carlo simulations of things going bump in the night, if you will. And of course, we're going to apply that to what I would call minimum thresholds over a 3-year period as to what we would consider business success. With that, we have to put the lens on of our regulatory landscape. It's not just the US, certainly the SEC and FINRA, but now we have to think about the UK, the EU, Asia Pacific, and the rest of the world. So what risks did we identify as our top risks? Well, we've got financial, strategic, and operational. Those are the big categories, and within those categories, we had a couple of subcategories. So financial, certainly economic, we've talked about that. Will this thing make money? Yes or no? The CFO is going to and has run models using the Salesforce, looking at market share, demand, number of shareholders, and what we charge. And I'm going to show some numbers in a minute as to what our revenue might look like. Insurance risk. our D&O coverage is going to have to increase. This one's fairly straightforward to cover, but I should go back up here. We looked at both the inherent risk. How big is this risk? And what is the likelihood of this risk actually happening? So economic risk meant here, this is going to be expensive to put in place, and it's very likely that it's going to be expensive to put in place. This is the biggest risk we have, is just setting this model up. Insurance risk, the inherent risk of insurance premium going up, yes, but the cost is very, very small compared to the operational cost. It is very likely. That's why it's a 1.5. Strategic risk. We have two regulatory risks, both U.S. and foreign. U.S. is not a problem. There's very little that we have to do additionally for the U.S., so the likelihood of any U.S. laws in changing our risk profile is low. That's why it's a 2. But the U.S. regulators are likely to come and inspect us, since we will be the first in the industry to do this, although I don't anticipate any findings from them. It's just going to suck up our time as we deal with them. So this is a 2.5. Foreign regulatory risk, much different. This is new for us, and the regulators have a new entity, i.e. us, BlueRock, to examine. This is going to be a 4.5. I expect that we are going to have the EU all over us because we are going to be doing something that's never happened in the world before. Strategic risk, reputational risk. This one's interesting. This could go positively for us because we're going to be first movers in the market. We could get positive brand recognition. We could also screw this thing up and have negative recognition. So this is a 2.5. Competitor risk, similar. Right now we're first, but competitors could quickly chase us. I think that will happen, so the likelihood of a competitor catching up is a 2.5. Compliance risk, 3.4. This is going to be difficult, and it's going to be a 3.4. Operations is even harder. We're talking about foreign languages, new technologies, new equipment. This is a 4.5. Contracts and litigation, we've kind of covered that. Contracts means our lawyers are going to have to spend more time. I don't want to go too deep in the weeds on that. Here's what it looks like on a heat map. If you plot it all out here, number 1 risk is financial. Compliance and operations are the top 3. And then you kind of get into regulatory and litigation risk. There is chance for mitigation. Kind of running out of time here, so I'm going to get to the mitigation part. So we can mitigate a lot of these risks. We're going to do so with contractual protections, with prospectus disclosures, and by upping our tax compliance with the IRS. As you can imagine, contractual disclosures are going to push the obligations back to the client, and we're going to do that. Prospectus disclosures disclose to shareholders exactly who is doing what. So if they need to sue someone, it won't be us. We will be directing the lawsuits to other entities, which is where the contracts point. And if you follow the IRS rules on how to handle foreign shareholders, we can minimize our exposure there. Beefing up our AML enhancements by collecting and connecting to the right foreign databases, which we will do, will minimize that risk. Monitoring and reporting to OFAC is exactly what we need to do. And starting with English only and doing that by contract and disclosing that in prospectuses should minimize some of the operational limitations. So what are the essential disclosures? We just went over that. Make certain clients know that we cannot distribute foreign, which means they'll have to get a foreign distributor, put that in a contract, and we can cut our litigation risk. The other part is just making certain that clients know we do not do filings in foreign jurisdictions. And if those two things are noted to clients in contracts and in prospectuses, we can mitigate this risk significantly. So the CFO came back with looking at the costs. So these right here, you can see the cost of the legal department is going to be almost $1 million in staffing costs. And then there's training costs. You can look at the revenue by region here in the middle here with the conservative and the optimistic estimates. Low end, we make less than $500,000. High end, we're making $2.5 million. You can also see where the annual costs are. It's spread out between staff, compliance, and then technology. It's pretty evenly split. Dollars at risk, running through the Monte Carlo scenarios. The lowest scenario, based off risk scenarios of things going wrong, regulatory fines, lawsuits, our exposure on the low end is $2.5 million. Worst case scenario is we're looking at $12 million exposure per year. That's a pretty pessimistic perspective, and I don't view that. 2.5 is more realistic, and our insurance policy would cover that. Mitigate, where is our mitigation efforts most applicable? It's in financial, and we're going to do that with insurance coverages I just went through. That's where the biggest hit is. Um, Regulatory and compliance, they are what they are. Those are just more like fixed costs. So this is our break-even point. If you look at the revenue versus our cost model, it's going to take us where the lines cross there around 1.2 million. That's our break-even. That's going to take us about 9 quarters to get there. So it's a 3-year projection. So if we are willing to sort of eat the cost for 3 years and absorb the risk, it'll take us about, call it 2 years to break even. Again, here's more information on what I would consider the minimal compliance rate. If we're willing to live, this is our risk appetite piece here. 2.5 million is the revenue target. Our compliance rate needs to be 98% or higher under my Monte Carlo scenarios. If we're dipping below that, then our risk profile is going to go up significantly. That 95% W-8 filings, if our compliance accuracy goes below that on IRS filings, we are exposed. And ultimately, we're shooting for $5 million of revenue goal. If we do not hit these metrics, all of that risk profile I just gave you, I'd have to redo. And I can't guarantee you that our risk profile would meet our risk appetite. So my recommendation is that we conditionally proceed, given that the CFO's projections that we just went through are correct, and we revalidate those every 6 months. The mitigation factors that I just identified are rolled out in the contracts and the prospectus disclosures, and that we do the ongoing risk monitoring with those thresholds that I just laid out. That's my recommendation. Timeline to actually roll this out. Basically, the next couple of weeks, we revalidate the CFO's numbers. Phase 1, which is basically the next 2 months, is that we finalize the contractual language, prepare a litigation assessment of the various countries that we're going to be exposed in. 2 to 4 months, we set up all the database and the compliance testing and training for our staff. And then by the 4th month, we're ready to go with a launch and start signing clients up. So that is my presentation board of the risk presentation, and I recommend that we allow those business units, the transfer agent and the broker-dealer, to move forward with their desire to process foreign shareholders. Thank you.